Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Alex. Welcome to another episode of the Long 2 NBA podcast. This is episode number 40. Of course, I'm with my co-host Seth.
Hello, I'm here via the internet.
Yes. Quick announcement, and maybe it's not. Maybe it's not very. Maybe it's not very quick. It's more like, give me a few minutes to explain this. So, the way we're going to be doing the podcast now is instead of like meeting in person, we're going to save like time and gas and all that stuff. And I figured out how to record these over the internet and do it digitally and stuff. So hopefully this is a step in the right direction to making it an easier listen and more fun to listen to, I guess. And we're also going to try to start transforming the show or the podcast more into a show rather than just us straight up talking for an hour. And there's going to be intro music, as you can hear now, and outro music. But yeah, we're just going to try to make it more into a show, but still cover everything rather than us just blabbing for an hour.
Yeah.
And try to.
It's going to be a bit more organized.
Yeah, we're going to try to get it to, 30 to 40 minutes rather than an hour, just to make it easier to listen to.
And sometimes we just get lost in it and we just keep going.
Yeah, but I feel like this will make it easier for us to keep track of time and whatnot. And eventually we're going to get videos showing on the screen and stuff, so just trying to make it better and more enjoyable for you guys. So let's just go over what we're going to talk about today, which is pretty much every second round series and just what's going on and everything.
Yeah.
We'll start with the West and then go East. It really doesn't matter. And then we'll just cover kind of the last few series in the first round that we didn't get to finish talking about since the last time we recorded, because some of them were still going on. So a lot of fun stuff happened. So let's go ahead and get right into it. I know that Philly and Brooklyn was still going on, but Philly pretty much handled their business. It was a tight game 4, and then they ended up winning that. And then in game 5, Brooklyn just didn't show up. So they ended that in 5. Nuggets and Spurs was still going, like you mentioned, and that ended up going 7 games.
Right, which we can talk about a little bit more extensively than some of the other stuff.
Yeah.
Because, I had... Well, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and talk about it right now. It went 7 games, obviously. Just like I thought. I'm not one to brag, but I was right about my prediction about Nuggets in 7.
Did you actually predict Nuggets in 7?
I did.
I think I said either 5 or 6.
I think you said 6, or maybe you did say 5. I don't know, but either way, it was a good series. Some of the games, some of the games were blowouts, and some of them were tight, but for the most part, it just kind of felt like game by game, it was somebody's night. As far as the teams go, like it was either the Spurs night or it was the Nuggets night, depending on which team showed up. You know what I'm saying? And for the most part, it was the home team.
Right. Jokic can put up some numbers, and like you won't even be able to tell until the end of the
right.
Smooth with how he plays, and just his weird post. What was that one sequence I saw him? This wasn't the Spurs Nuggets series, but he kept trying. He went behind the back like 3 times and tried to do a spin move.
That was against the Blazers in the second round, which we'll talk about that series too a little later on. But yeah, man,
just his moves. I love his play style. Just how great of a passer he is. His touchdown passes across the court.
Yeah, he's so skilled at so many things, and that's what makes him so unique. And he doesn't get the recognition that he deserves as an MVP candidate or one of the top 10 players in the NBA, just because he's not like a super flashy kind of player, but he does so many things so well that it's kind of hard to leave him out of those conversations, especially after what we've seen in the playoffs from him so far.
Right. I wouldn't even say that I think a lot of stuff that he does is very upfront. Like you see those touchdown passes across the court, or behind the back, or like he'll throw like just a drill sometimes, like a cross court to get like a corner 3. Just seeing stuff like that, it's the little things. I think even someone who doesn't watch basketball that often could be able to tell, like, oh, this guy's special. Like I don't know, he's one of those people you can just kind of tell just by watching him play for like a couple of minutes.
Yeah, you can just see like, oh wow, this guy's good at basketball. You know what I'm saying?
Right. But to good at basketball amongst other professionals, that's a different level.
Right, for sure. And you can just see that he, like you mentioned, the passing ability. That's obviously phenomenal. And people always say for a big, just like for a player in general. If you ask me, like
there are point guards who don't have the vision that Jokic has. And
exactly. Yeah, like there's players who are meant to be playmakers and passers who aren't as good as him at it. So he's just straight up one of the best passers in the NBA, not just one of the best passing bigs. Like he's just one of the best playmakers and passers in general.
He's the best passing big by far already.
Easily, but he's in the conversation of, best playmakers in the NBA.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Because if anything, they run him at points sometimes. He'll take the ball down the court and he'll set it up, and it's really useful because he can set those picks and screens while at the same time starting a play.
Yeah,
that's really cool to watch.
Yeah, for sure. They run their offense through him, and also credit to Jamal Murray. He didn't have he would start games really slow, and then he would show up towards the end of them. And he made that huge shot in Game 7 to put him up 4. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, that thing touched the ceiling.
And he makes some big shots. Game 6.
Yeah, Game 2 he had that huge fourth quarter.
Oh, it was
Game 6. I know he started to play well towards the later games in the series, but throughout the first 2 or 3 games he wasn't the best, at all. So
yeah, sometimes he can just be I don't want to say no-show, but his shot's off, and you'll have nights like that where things just aren't hitting, things aren't going in.
Yeah, it happens. It's part of the game, but he did play well in the later games when it really, really mattered. Every game matters in the playoffs, but when it's win or go home, or you're trying to eliminate in the elimination games, he showed up then for sure.
Yeah, if you're not going to show up, at least show up then.
Yeah. I don't really have anything else on that series. I mean, it was fun at points. It
was fun to watch. LaMarcus Aldridge and Jokic going at it. That was an interesting match.
And DeRozan had a good playoffs too. We haven't heard much from him.
Until Game 7.
Game 7 he really, really shit the bed.
I think everyone on the Spurs laid an egg in Game 7.
Yeah, especially to start. Weren't they down 20 at one point, but they came back? Or something like that.
Yeah, it was like that, and I was watching the game. I was like, please, Nuggets, don't find a way to blow this.
Yeah, for
and
real.
They were so close to blowing it. Yeah. They were very close.
Yeah, they almost did. So that was definitely interesting. And then they decided not to foul with 20 seconds left.
Right.
And even if they did foul, the Nuggets likely would have made the free throws and the game would have been over anyways. So it's not like they cost themselves the series per se. But at the same time, you never know what might have happened had they fouled.
Right. You still play to win.
Right, for sure. But I guess Pop was saying he didn't hear me, and Aldridge said he didn't hear Pop. So, but still, that's just you should know to foul in that situation whether or not you heard him anyway. Even high school teams probably know to foul in that situation. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It just seems how did none of those veterans on the Spurs know to foul in that situation? I don't get it.
I don't know. Did they all just give up?
I guess so. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. There's no way that they didn't know that that's what they needed to do in that situation. So
it was just weird. It's a lot of these series have just had weird things that I guess people haven't really expected, which we'll get into with some of the other series. But
yeah.
Anything else you want to talk about with that?
No, I think that's
the last first round series.
Yeah, let's talk about Blazers Thunder. That wasn't over. Game 5 was the night that we recorded the last episode. So we know what happened in Game 5. It was a good game, and that's all that happened. No, I'm just kidding. No, Damian Lillard went off for 50 points, 10 threes, had 5 assists. I don't care about rebounds, but hit the game-winning, series-winning shot from the logo. I mean, that was unbelievable, man.
And it only prolongs his nickname, but I still don't like it.
What, Logo Lillard?
Yeah, same. King of the Fourth Quarter says it too. He doesn't like that nickname.
Yeah, I heard him say that.
It doesn't work for me.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, and it's cool. It's, it kind of defines a part of his game, right?
Right.
But I also don't really Like it's not something that flows off the tongue real easily.
I'd rather just call him like Dame Time, or
Right.
you know, just straight up like Dame. You know, his full name's Damian, but we just call him Dame at this point. You know?
Yeah, it's just easier, one syllable. You know what I mean?
Right. So we already well known with him, and just the importance of that series and how it ended. It couldn't have been written any better.
Man, I mean, that's just a storybook ending for not only Dame but for the Blazers, because you know what happened last season and how they got swept, and they just put all of that to rest. You know, given the circumstances of, like, Portland was considered the huge underdogs in this series. Like, some people thought it was an upset that they won, and they won in 5 games. Like, that's kind of crazy.
Right, 5 games. Thunder got 1, and
yeah,
that's what made me confused when Schroeder and Westbrook were teasing Lillard for the one game that they won.
Man, they should have known. I mean, at that point, they figured they were going to win Game 4 and tie the series after they won Game 3.
Right.
But they should have known not to poke the bear. Like, we've seen that countless times with you remember, like, Tatum and LeBron last year.
Yeah.
And Damian Lillard isn't LeBron, but still, and you don't, players like that who can just lay it. What am I trying to say? Who can just dominate a game and
right? Who can just
lay it all out there? Yeah.
You say like, be like, oh, just gonna put this into high gear, just roast everyone.
Exactly. Those players who can shift the gear and just dominate. But
right.
Yeah, they shouldn't have been talking shit.
Yeah, shouldn't have been talking shit.
I love that Cat Williams clip.
But dude, like it's not just like the crazy logo 3 to win. Just the craziest thing is how contested and tough the 3-point shots that he was making.
Yeah, he was making some ridiculous shots all night.
Right. He was just series. He was trying to get shots like off screens and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But like, even when the screens didn't work, he was like, "Screw it, I'm launching. I don't care."
Yeah, I mean, he was hitting threes through contact. He was hitting threes off the dribble, off little side steps and step backs, like all of it. Like his arsenal is so good, it's crazy. And his defense has also taken a step in the right direction. Also, I mean, he was stripping Westbrook. He was taking charges. He was making really good plays.
Yeah, he was making great plays. And I also want to give a shout out to C.J. McCollum.
I was about to bring him up also.
He did amazing in that.
Yeah, in that series he played really well. Shot the ball extremely well.
The one sequence when he jumped up, it was like a block/steal
on PG,
and then he drained a transition 3 on the the end.
Yeah, that was disgusting.
That sums up his performance in that series. He was very good.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Dame and CJ. They really, like I said before, put everything to rest after getting swept last year, and it was a big win for them to get to the second round and also to have a chance to get to the Western Conference Finals. Pending what happens in this Denver series, but which we'll get to in a minute. But something about that game-winning shot was something about it that doesn't sit right with me for some reason. Every time I watch it, like I really appreciate the shot. Like that was one of my favorite performances of all time. And that shot itself was one of the greatest shots of all time. That's what everybody's saying. And there was no. How those big moments in the playoffs sometimes there's a timeout called before it, or there's some build up to it. You know what I mean? Like they were down 15 in the fourth quarter and they came back. Yeah,
I'll run the clock down and launch.
Yeah, and like he knew the whole time that's what he was gonna do. Like he didn't plan to drive or anything. So that was a shot he was planning to take for the series, which is insane to me. And he was like, what was he, 8 for 12 from shots from 30 feet or more in the series? That's ridiculous.
That was statistic, and that's what they talked about when Paul George was like, I don't care what you say, that's a bad shot.
Yeah, that's just being a bad sport.
And it's funny they pulled up the receipts and they were like, well, statistically, it's actually an amazing shot for him.
That was one of my favorite parts of the whole series, was just how bent they were over losing.
Oh my goodness!
And just all the trash talk that occurred in that series, and the taunting and stuff. It's just like
I thought PG was like an innocent bystander, like at sometimes, but when he did that late game like dunk that didn't even count. I was like, all right, he wants to smoke too. Dame's about to.
That wasn't very Paul George of him. You know what I'm saying?
Right? Yeah, it kind of threw me off.
Like he's not the type of guy to do that.
Character than that, I would think.
Yeah, and then Westbrook's like next question stuff, which he's always done that to that reporter, but still, it's I don't know. You should take a couple minutes out of your day to answer some questions from the media. That's how you connect with fans. You know, but I don't want to get too much into that. But I just
it's not like he's being Westbrook. How hot is your mom? Like he's not asking ridiculous questions. He's just doing his job.
Right, exactly. But you know, all the trash talk and pettiness that went on throughout all the games and stuff, and just for Dame and the Blazers to come away with the win in the fashion that they did was just, you couldn't have, like you said, you couldn't have scripted it better.
Yeah, I'm just so happy for Dame, and
Me too.
OKC deserves to hold that L.
Yeah, for sure.
As long.
and then he waved goodbye too. We didn't mention that.
Oh yeah, he waved goodbye. The iconic celebration where he's just staring into the camera, like, "Yeah, I did that. What's up?"
Man, that's just gonna be something that we're gonna remember for forever, really. I mean, that's
right. I watched that live, and I was like,
same.
It was 1 a.m. I was like shaking in my recliner.
Man,
I was losing it.
It's just unreal, man. Me and my dad were both watching the game, and our TV actually cut out when OKC had the ball with like 25 left, and then it came back on, and the Blazers were dribbling it the other way, and we didn't see what happened, but you know, watching the highlights, I saw Westbrook drove and tried to force a contested layup. And,
you could pretty much guess what happened.
I told my dad, I was like, I bet you Russ missed a shot. And sure enough, that's what happened.
Oh, my goodness.
So
that was the most Russell Westbrook thing situation.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, oh, it's me time. Let me drive into two people and then fumble the ball.
Yeah, so what's next for the Thunder after their third straight first round exit?
I have no idea. What's PG's contract looking like?
I think he's got 3 or 4 more years on it with OKC. Westbrook's contract is terrible also.
Dang.
Because he's kind of getting close to exiting his prime, and his athleticism is declining a little bit. So, he's never been an efficient shooter or scorer, so that's a problem in itself.
Right. He's never been. That's the thing about this season, is that he was never an efficient scorer or shooter, but he somehow got worse.
Right. It's really mind-boggling. You know what I mean? Like, if the Thunder, to me, in my opinion, if they want to have success moving forward, they need to treat Westbrook like they do Giannis. They need to put shooters around him and have him be a paint and at the rim scorer, and also make him be able to have shooters that space the floor when he drives, so he can just drive and kick for open threes and stuff like that. Like, that would be a great offensive system for them to run, especially now that Westbrook's going into his 30s.
Yeah, Westbrook doesn't need to be taking transition threes, or his style of play this year just hasn't been successful in really any capacity. I mean, you can argue with the triple doubles, and he's averaging that, but it just, as far as winning, it doesn't translate as well as as someone think it should. I don't know, it's hard to phrase that, but
yeah, I got you. He just doesn't need to be shooting the ball as much as he does. Like, they need to make some trades for shooters if they can, but shooters aren't cheap. So like, both when making trades and when you have to pay them. So I think they're kind of stuck, but we'll see what they do. And let's talk about Billy Donovan. I know he got a lot of slack for the loss, and you were saying before that he doesn't really run an actual system or many plays, or the system he runs isn't efficient with the players that he has in the starting lineup. Mainly talking about Terrence Ferguson and Jeremy Grant. Like,
right, he doesn't really utilize the tools that he has. He kind of lets his players decide how they're used, if that makes any sense.
I got you. Like, he just like, oh, I have Westbrook and Paul George. That should be enough for them to decide how the game is going to go and what they're going to do, which is fine. But at the same time, you have to you have to at least implement a style of play,
Right.
like an identity.
Be an actual coach. Draw up plays. Sometimes it seems like they're just free balling it for like 5 straight possessions.
Yeah, and then Westbrook will go stretches where he doesn't give the ball up and he just wants to shoot. And I think he needs a coach that's gonna have enough balls to tell Russell Westbrook to stop, like
For real.
like quit hogging the ball. You know what I'm saying? But I don't think Billy Donovan is like that kind of guy who's going to tell his superstar.
Right. He just doesn't seem the type to be like, all right, that's enough. Like,
Yeah.
I remember I texted you and Nate about this. His plus minus this year was the worst it's ever been.
Man.
It's ever been.
Yeah, I mean, he's unfortunately he's been on the decline. You know, both athletically and, you know, shooting and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, everything went down this year. Everything, and it was at the start of the year too. It wasn't like, you know, he was slowly declining. It's weird because it was just like a random thing. The next season, he just started to suck at the free throw line. His shooting numbers, like everything went down.
It's really strange, but also when you think about it, it's kind of not because he's going into his 30s now. So.
I mean, true, but for it to be just so sudden like
that... Yeah, that's true. His game's always been kind of based around athleticism, and when that starts to leave, other areas of your game start to struggle because I think your confidence goes down. But Russ doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who's going to lose confidence over, like, basketball ability, if that makes sense. I don't know. Or maybe it's all like an act. I don't know.
I don't think he's going to lose his confidence anytime soon. If anything, he needs to lose attitude and lose ego.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I agree 100% with that. He and Ben Simmons have the same like inner power struggle. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, they both feel like they're alphas, and then they kind of end up, you know, performing not as well as they could be because of it.
I feel like Westbrook behaves like CP3, but does not have the leadership or, you know, point guard qualities that like CP3 has. At least when, you know, prime CP3. If you know, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and CP3 even now is kind of a hoe. Like, he'll be out there like, you know, pushing people when they're dunking. You know, when they're coming down from the dunk, he'll like get under their legs or whatever, and he'll just kind of be a little. I don't know. It's just
the little man syndrome.
He's got some childish tendencies when he's out there sometimes.
Right, like of course the classic, you know, him pretending to laugh at Steve Kerr's
Well, that's funny. Like like fake laugh stuff. I think that's hilarious. But
it's hilarious, but it also shows just. Like that clip in itself embodies everything that Chris Paul is.
Yeah, I don't know. Little man syndrome is probably a good way to put it, but sometimes he's just not the easiest guy to root for.
Yeah,
just based on some of the on-court antics.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to be like, yeah, let's go Chris Paul. Like, you do feel for him because, you know, he's been struggling to find a championship team. You know, lots of teams haven't worked out. You know, his prime in Charlotte was Charlotte, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you know, with the Clippers Charlotte, also, like, he's exiting his prime. We've known that now. I think last year he was starting to exit it. So yeah, I mean, with Charlotte and LA, you know, that was prime CP3, or at least the best version of CP3.
I can't imagine what you know, this timeline would look like, you know, if he was able to make that transition to LA and play with Kobe, was it?
Yeah, that was the trade that got vetoed. You never know, he could have a couple rings by now. Shit.
Right, for real.
But yeah, I mean, speaking of Chris Paul, I think we've pretty much covered everything from that Thunder and Blazers series. So let's get to Warriors Rockets. Start talking about the second round series.
Yeah.
I think Nathan might have been right when he called this. He said Warriors in 5.
Yeah.
Warriors are up 2-0. I don't really want to entertain the whole officiating talk because to me that's not talking about basketball. Like,
oh, come on now. We have to talk.
All right, fine.
That was the whole situation with
Fine.
game one.
Yeah,
That's all anybody was
I
talking
know.
about.
Okay, I'll give you my take.
Okay.
Yeah, some fouls were missed, but I've seen James Harden like land in the defender's space on a contest rather than the defender landing in his space. Like, I'm not saying he does it every time, and not that there's never a foul when he shoots a three, but from what I've seen, it looks like he's kicking his legs out into the defender's space rather than keeping his own and trying. He's trying to bait the officials into calling it. And then when he kicks his legs out like that, that's not going to get you the call because you're not, like, it'd be different if they were landing in your space, but you're landing in theirs. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, what's your take on it?
Yeah. Personally, my take is, I talked a little bit about this on Twitter, is the consistency of the play calling and, how the consistency of officiating. And I hate when these players are like, well, whatever the refs are feeling that night, I guess you got to play that way. Like, it shouldn't be like that.
Yeah, it should be consistent.
A consistent rule book where things, and I know it's hard to officiate a player like James Harden. I get it. But you can't just be like, you know what, James Harden, he did this all year. Let's not give him any calls, because there's no way you can watch that game and tell me he didn't get fouled at least 3 times. And Klay Thompson should have had way more fouls than he did.
Yeah, no, there was definitely some suspect calls, both ways.
There's, of course, I know that Chris Paul, shaking his booty, trying to get that foul call, stuff like that looks ridiculous and all. But the problem I have with it is, James Harden's play style worked just fine during that Jazz series. And Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell even had a conversation about it on Twitter, talking about, we couldn't even guard him even close to that hard.
Right. I didn't see him doing that in that series, though.
Really?
It seems like I didn't see him doing the leg kick out and trying to draw contact on threes in that series as much as I saw in Game 1.
Yeah, I mean, that has a lot to do with the skill gap between the Jazz and the Warriors.
Well, yeah, the Jazz also guarded him completely differently. So, but still, I don't rock with the whole trying to sell out for contact rather than focusing on making the shot. You get what I mean?
I understand what you mean, but I just disagree. I think there's something to be said for some of these foul calls, and James Harden is putting the officials in a tough place, and the officials just can't be like, you know what, screw it, I'm not going to give him anything. Like, you have to make an effort to see these calls. I understand that he might jump up in the landing space, maybe instead of a no call, stop the play and say, okay, that was a foul on James Harden. Let's talk about that maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Call it an offensive foul. I just feel like there's something to be said. There's definitely something to talk about.
Yeah, no, for sure. I get what you're saying. I just don't think it's a good way of playing basketball, just personally.
No, yeah. If
it's
that's
ineffective.
What your whole system is built around, then it's not going to work.
Exactly. And then in Game 2, we saw him stop doing that. And what did he do? He made shots. So that's my point. If he focuses more on making the shots.
He also got doinked in the eye, both eyes.
Oh yeah, we gotta talk about that too in a second. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, there has to be consistency, and also, what am I trying to say? The refs have to make a decision. Are we
right?
Like,
you
can't give him the call all year and then all of a sudden not give it to him in the playoffs.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, because James Harden has adapted his play style to work that way, and then for it to be, to just suddenly, all right, well, now in the playoffs it's different. Why? That doesn't make
it doesn't make sense because it's not consistent with how it was all year.
Right. Why should the officiating be any different from a playoff to a regular season game?
Yeah, sure. I understand that. But I also just don't think trying to ref bait is the most entertaining style of play or most effective way to play.
And that's why a lot of people dislike James Harden and his style of play, is because it's kind of an eyesore. It's hard to watch.
I agree. But when he's not doing that and he's driving, passing, making the shots, like, it's so much more fun to watch. Exactly. So he needs to not rely on that, because it's not something you can rely on to get every game, as we've seen. And like I said in game 2, he quit doing it, and they were in the game for the most part.
But I do want to say, I don't want to give that excuse. It's like, well, everybody else is doing it, but a lot of other all-star caliber players are doing it. Steph Curry does it. His flop is much worse. That's why he doesn't get the call.
Right, but think about it. Who's the poster child
PG
for
does
it?
Yeah, PG
yeah. Paul George definitely ref baits, and I hate when they do it. He did it a lot during that Blazers series.
Right, and that's part of the reason why they lost that series was he ref baited. Like he relied on that way too much.
Like if you're gonna drive and you're gonna try to sell out for contact instead of trying to finish the shot, what's the point? Because if you don't get the call, you just give up a possession or you give up potential points. Like that's why I like watching guys like Kawhi Leonard so much, is he doesn't ref bait. Like he tries to finish every time, and same with like Kyrie Irving.
Yeah. Kyrie, like the most you'll get out of Kyrie and Kawhi is like a hey.
Yeah, exactly.
He might say like 3 words to the ref, be like, hey, that's a foul. Like it doesn't go much farther than that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not CP3 where you're getting up in the ref face, be like, why did you call that, man?
Yeah, that's what I respect about guys who don't do that, is they just play the game in a more respectable way, or more like fun way to watch, in all facets of the game. Like, but when we see what happens when James isn't doing that, they play better. Like I think they played a lot better last night than game 1.
So it could be a situation where he's still stuck in that regular season, I have to carry this team mode.
Yeah, which he doesn't have to do. But Capella has been kind of...
Capella's been very, very shaky.
I don't know what happened.
He didn't show up for game 1.
I know he was sick.
And Nate talked about it. It's like, well, he was talking a lot of crap. He wasn't really talking crap.
He just said he wanted to face the Warriors, and then he's kind of laid an egg in a couple quarters. So
which is not a good sign.
Not the optics of it aren't good.
Yeah.
So, but let me ask you this. We've hit on the ref stuff and style of play and whatnot, but what have you seen from KD and the rest of the Warriors and Steph and them? I think they've played really well so far.
We have played phenomenal.
And go ahead. Sorry.
KD has been great, but the surprise of this series has been Draymond. Draymond has been fantastic this series.
He's been really good.
Great. He's been playmaking on an elite level. His passing has been great. I know this goes kind of hand in hand, but there's a difference. Like, Draymond has these kind of like almost 3 pass sequences where he'll get it to him in the paint, and he'll manage to lob it up, and you're like, where's that going? And all of a sudden, like, Looney will come out of nowhere and dunk.
Yeah, I mean, that's just his game. Like, he had a down year in the regular season, and then we see him in the playoffs doing his thing that he's been doing for years. So that's just another sign to me that the Warriors just don't care during the regular season, and for some games.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like that.
Yeah, but yeah, credit to him. He's been great. And also on defense, too, he's been great. Except for when he slapped James Harden's eyes. That wasn't exactly the best thing that could have happened for the Rockets.
Excellent defense.
It wasn't intentional, obviously, but it's just like, of course it would happen, right?
Right. He does it to LeBron, then he does it to James Harden.
I forgot about the LeBron one until I looked back at it. That game 1 last year in the finals, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about Steph Curry. He seems to be not fully the Steph Curry that we expect, or that we've grown accustomed to over the past few years. But then when you go look at his stats, he's still shooting tremendous percentages, and he's still averaging 23 and 5 or something like that. So he's still phenomenal.
His defense has taken a huge leap.
Yeah, he's gotten better defensively for sure. But it seems like sometimes he just gives up the whole team and offense to Kevin Durant, which is very unselfish of him. But I just miss that Steph Curry from years past.
I think we're gonna see it next year.
I hope to God we do, man. I'm so tired of watching him be so passive to Kevin Durant and taking the back seat and whatnot. Like, Kevin Durant's their best player, and he's proven it this playoffs. But I want to see Steph on his own team again. I've said that so many times.
Right. I mean, it's kind of what we're all rooting for. Everyone pretty much knows that like KD has both feet out the door at this point.
At least that's how it
Even though he
seems.
might just bring this team to another finals.
He'll probably win another championship, Finals MVP. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that they're going to beat whoever comes out of the East. I think whoever comes out of the East has a chance to do it.
They definitely have that chance. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't bet on it, but I wouldn't bet on the East champion. But it's doable for sure. But yeah, I mean, I've learned my lesson. Once these rumors start circulating, like the Lakers rumors and LeBron were circulating all last year. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And it came true. So if it happens again this year with KD to the Knicks, I'm just gonna believe the superstar free agent team rumors, like the main one that comes up. Like I'm just gonna be like, it's happening, because that'll be 2 years in a row.
Because half the time it'll be some way left field stuff, and
Sometimes it is.
But I mean, yeah, it definitely seems like that, and just the cat's out of the bag now, and maybe it just became like this messy thing where he had planned to go somewhere next season, and then things got out, and now he's being asked all these questions, and he's mad about it because it got out.
But yeah,
that was my take on it a while ago.
I remember you said that. Come up. But also, he seems super locked in these playoffs. I mean, he's been arguably the best player in the playoffs. Like him, Kawhi, and Dame, and like Jokic have probably been, and Giannis. Right. They've been some of the best players in the playoffs so far.
They've been the 4 or 5 best players, in the playoffs that we've seen.
But he's carrying this team at times.
KD, most definitely.
Yeah.
Because when Steph's not hitting, KD can get his shot off whenever, and half the time he drains it, man.
Yeah. So what's your prediction for the rest of the series? Do you think the Rockets can tie it, or do you think it's over?
I think it's Warriors in 5 or 6.
Yeah, I think Nathan was right. I mean, I think, like, I can see the Rockets tying the series, but I also think the Warriors have a big chance of stealing one of those games in 3 or 4, and then they're going to be up 3-1, go back to Oracle for Game 5, and that's probably it.
Right.
So that's kind of where I'm leaning.
Yeah, that's kind of the consensus of this series, but yeah. I hope it's different.
Yeah, I hope it's longer, because that means more pettiness and more basketball, and longer series are always more fun to watch.
Of course, yeah.
Let's talk about the Blazers and the Nuggets. It's been 1 game so far. Denver won. It was kind of close. Denver started to pull away with it late, though. But, Dame probably had the quietest 39-point game ever.
Right, yeah, he did.
But, everybody on the Nuggets showed up, including the role players. And they're just, in my opinion, the Nuggets are a better team from top to bottom, but I also think Portland has the advantage in the backcourt. But I like Denver's bench better and their front court better, obviously, because they have Jokic and Millsap.
Denver definitely has the depth and all-around better structure of a team. I feel like...
I think they have a better system, too.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Terry Stotts, he has a great system as it is.
Yeah, I mean, they're both good.
It's been proven.
Yeah,
they can falter at times.
Yeah. I mean, they're both... Mike Malone and Terry Stotts are both great coaches. I just think I'd give the advantage to Malone. I mean, because they weren't the 2nd seed by accident, and the Blazers weren't the 3rd seed by accident either.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, they're both really good teams. This is going to be a fun series. I'm thinking that, I don't know, if the Blazers lose tonight and Denver goes up 2-0, I think it's probably, I don't know, it could still go 7. This feels like a series where the home team is going to win every game.
I believe that, because both their home stadium home courts. I couldn't think of the word courts or something.
They both have really good home courts.
Yeah, they have great home courts on both sides. As we've seen before, Blazers fans are diehard, and so are Nuggets fans.
And the Nuggets fans have a really loud arena. And
for it being Colorado, they're pretty loud.
Yeah, and so does stop. So does Portland. I mean, their fans are loud too. They just have really good fan bases, and it's hard to win in each arena, So But people were saying that like it's very Nuggets of them to lose game two and then have a harder, longer series than necessary. But again, I feel like this is going to be one of those things where it goes seven and the home team wins every game.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. If it ends up being 1-1 tonight, and if Portland ends up winning, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sorry, I'm yawning, but
Yeah, you're good.
I wouldn't be surprised. Honestly, this series, I don't know. I've never.
This is a weird
I mean,
series.
it's been a while since we've seen the Blazers get out of
Yeah.
the first round, and Nuggets haven't.
Same with the Nuggets.
Yeah, so it's
I mean, they haven't even
This
made the
is a new
playoffs in a few
situation.
years.
usually we can gauge it by playoff performances in the recent
Yeah,
past, but with this one, it just kind of seems like a wild card.
exactly. That's what makes this kind of a weird yet interesting and very good, or potential to be very good series.
Right.
I'm excited for the game tonight. It comes on in an hour, so
Yeah,
we'll see how that goes.
We'll wrap this up, and then we'll probably be watching that.
Yeah, we got to cover those East series after this series in the East. I didn't see much from McCollum in that game one. He had that great first round series versus Oklahoma.
Yeah.
But
That's been my
he
problem
wasn't
with him.
as good, and the role players weren't quite as good, with the exception of like Rodney Hood, and Cantor played really well too in game one. But if CJ has a bad game, like if Dame and CJ both have a bad game, or I'm sorry, if one of them have a bad game, it's going to be hard to win.
Right.
So
You need
they
of
both
them
have to
perform.
play exactly.
You need like a CJ 20 and Lillard 30 for there to be, really.
or like a high 20s for both of them, or something. For them to have a much higher chance at winning the game, and also the role players have to step up too.
Yeah, that's the thing. These
Yeah.
role players that have terrible contracts.
Yeah. But the role players they were good in the first round against OKC, but it's a common theme where a team's role players play better at home. So I'm expecting them, when the series ends up shifting to Portland for games 3 and 4. I'm assuming that the role players for Portland will take a step up, and the Denver role players will kind of take a step back. That just seems to be how it goes for role players who aren't considered like elite role players. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't really have much else on that series. Do you?
No, not really. Like I said, it's
only been one game,
I don't know.
so.
It's just like a big question mark.
If you were to pick a winner, who would you pick?
Like we talked about, I feel like Nuggets have the better structure, so I feel like it would either be Nuggets in 6 or 7.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards 6 and 7 as well in the Nuggets' favor, but you never know what's going to happen. I underestimated Portland against OKC, so this might be me doing that same thing again. And I even said this isn't going to be the last time that I underestimate them in the last episode. So we'll see. I mean, if Dame has more big games, they got a chance at winning the series. So we'll see. So let's shift to the East here. Let's go to Milwaukee and Boston. This series is tied 1-1. First game was a blowout in the Celtics' favor, and the second game was a blowout in the Bucks' favor.
But there's a difference between these two games, though.
For sure. Let me hear what you think.
Other than just the fact that it's just different teams blowing each other out.
Mhm.
The Bucks didn't look too great in the first half of the second game. Giannis stepped it up towards the end of the second quarter and just killed them for the rest of the game.
In which game? Game 2?
Yeah, game 2.
Yeah. Okay. I thought you were talking about game 1. I was like,
sorry, I'm kind of going backwards, but
yeah, I got you.
but yeah, game 1 he didn't really show up. At least from the Giannis that we've seen.
Yeah. I don't think he's even been the Giannis that we've seen at all yet in this series. I mean, they won game 2 by 20 or something, probably, I think is what it was, but he still hasn't been that dominant Giannis that we saw in that Detroit series. But Boston's no Detroit, or rather Detroit is no Boston.
Right.
So, but the Celtics played him really well in game 1, played him really well in the first half of game 2, but for whatever reason they just kind of strayed away from their game plan. Kyrie had a bad night, And then
Right.
you
It's
know
like they just ran out of juice or something.
the teams tend to follow how their star player is playing. You know, so if Kyrie's having a bad game, it's kind of hard for the rest of the team to pick up the slack. If you know what I'm saying. But he had a terrible shooting night.
It's definitely not an excuse for people like Tatum and Brown not stepping up. And
Yeah, Tatum's been terrible this series so far.
Tatum has been mediocre all year, honestly.
Sorta.
It's just been very mediocre.
He played well in that Pacers series though, but he's been completely taken out of it in this Bucks series. So he's got to get going.
Right. Just seeing him miss like open threes, like I don't know. It just you see the way he's built, you see the way he moves, and like this kid should be a superstar.
Well, right, but he also plays on such a deep team. You know, he's got to find his role. But I get what you're saying. It's going to take a few years for him to become that, I think. But he's definitely he definitely can be a key contributor.
Yeah, but anyways, we should probably keep talking about the actual series itself. But
yeah,
Tatum was like important as far as who wasn't showing up, who was showing up. There was a crazy layup that I saw.
That was Jaylen Brown, right?
Yeah, that was Jaylen Brown.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure
he did that 180 and like threw it over his shoulder, behind his back, like over his head, over Giannis.
Yeah, that was wild.
That was a crazy play.
To have the guts to do that, you'd think you'd have the guts to, maybe dribble around more, try to take some more shots.
But Kyrie was kind of shooting way too fast too early in the shot clock, giving away possessions. Like he did not shoot well at all. I don't know exactly what his percentages were, but it was bad. So I don't.
Well, it's not good.
Yeah, I mean, I expect him to be better moving forward, especially now that the series is shifting to Boston. But if you ask me, Boston is perfectly happy, stealing a game on the road and having it tied going back to their place.
Oh yeah, of course.
My prediction for this series was Bucks in 6, and I think I still feel that way.
Same.
But especially if they split these two games in Boston, and the series is still tied 2-2, I think it could go all the way to 7. But I don't see the Bucks losing Game 7 at home. So I think
Game 6, you mean?
Game 7. Game 6 would be in Boston.
Oh yeah, sorry.
But still, I don't really see the Bucks losing this series yet. If they end up going down 3-1, then that's another story. But even if Boston goes up 2-1 in the series, they still could have a chance to win it. You never know what's going to happen in these games. I mean, there's been moments of this series where the Bucks look like the Bucks, and then there's been moments of the series where they look like, I don't know, Orlando. I don't know.
Orlando. and not Game 1 Orlando.
Yeah. So we'll see. But yeah, either way, I think Boston is happy where they're at. I think Milwaukee knows they could probably be up 2-0, and they might be a little discouraged from that. But Boston should be happy.
This is what they were shooting for, pretty much. Was let's try and steal at least one game on their home court, and that's what they managed to do. Their first game.
And if you had told them hey, if you had told them before the playoffs start, hey, you're going to sweep Indiana, and then you're going to come back to your home court in the second round for Game 3 and 4, and the series is going to be tied 1-1, they'll take that.
Right, yeah. It's not a bad situation in any capacity.
Yeah, for sure. So, you got anything else on that series?
Just, like you said, I think Giannis can step up a little bit more. I think we have yet to see a breakout game from him this playoff series.
Yeah, series.
Playoffs in general.
We saw Game 4. He had a phenomenal game against Detroit. And he was that Giannis for that series, I think. But we have yet to see it in this series.
Right.
I disagree with you about this playoffs yet, but we'll see. I'm excited for the rest of the series.
I think he's capable of. Well, everyone knows he's capable of monster games.
Yeah, for sure. We just haven't seen it yet against. I don't think we've seen it really at all against the Celtics. I think. Well, maybe there was one game this regular season, but it's the playoffs now. We don't care about regular season anymore.
Right.
All right, let's move to this last series. Philly, Toronto. This to me is the more intriguing matchup in the East. Every semis series in both conferences is really good, but to me this is This is one of my. I think this is my favorite one. If I had to pick,
Okay. Just because of like what factors makes it your favorite?
I'm just in awe of every time. I'm in awe of Kawhi Leonard every time I watch him play, man. I mean, he makes it look so easy. Like, and he's getting some MJ comparisons to the way he gets to his spots and just scores like effortlessly.
Especially, like, I remember. Oh my goodness, there's one time, I think it was game 2, where they did the roll the ball up the court, so the clock doesn't start.
Yeah,
And he like most players pick it up with 2 hands. They don't take any doubt. He is so sure of his giant hands that he'll just grab it with his left and be like, "All right, let's get it."
for
Like,
real. It's crazy,
his hands
man.
are so big. But he has such a soft touch with it, with those turnaround fadeaways. He gets to his spots with relative ease. You know, he can back people in, get and ones.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
we were in the group chat, and you guys were like, "I don't think Toronto can come back from this game on the game 2," and they started to do it.
And they almost did it too. Danny Green just missed a game tying 3.
Kyle Lowry blew it by trying to dribble in between.
Yo, he tried to nutmeg Tobias Harris, bro.
Come on, bro.
Like,
you can't be doing that.
I don't know if he tried to cross over and the ball just didn't follow him. Like, he lost it a little bit, so he had to improvise. But to me, that looked like he was trying to go like and one street mixtape in a crucial moment of a playoff game.
To end the playoff game. Come on.
Right. So I don't know. I don't know if anybody has asked him about that yet, but if they do, I'd be interested to hear his answer. Like, I think
right. Like what was going through his mind? Did he mean to do that?
Right.
Like
was he
the ball in front of him?
Exactly. I want to know. But credit to Philly for digging deep and winning that game.
Credit to Jimmy Butler. He saved them that game.
Or as Brett Brown would say, he was the adult in the room.
Is that what he said?
Yeah.
I didn't read that. I know he called him. He was James Butler or something like that.
Yeah, he called him James Butler as if to say like this is the grown up Jimmy. He's like, that ain't my name, man. It's literally Jimmy. that was hilarious to me. But no, he didn't shoot great, but he was there when it mattered, and that's the reason they traded for him, is to be that late game closer and decision maker.
Yeah, he is a very clutch. I don't want to say clutch shooter, but he's a clutch player in general. Like, he can get you a bucket needed.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a good way of putting it. He's a clutch player, not necessarily a clutch shooter. I like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that series is tied 1-1. Toronto played really well in game 1, almost well enough to make me think it might be Raptors in 5.
Right. And Kyle Lowry's actually showed up this series.
Yeah, man, dude,
he's been pretty great.
In the end of, like, when you mentioned that they almost came back to win that game too.
Right, he was part of it.
He was making some, he made those huge threes to cut the deficit, and then Danny Green ended up missing the wide open 3 to tie.
People were giving a lot of flack for that, but I don't think he really like choked or anything. You know, can you imagine how many times he takes that open shot from the wing?
Yeah, I know he wants that.
It's just a matter of sometimes it doesn't hit. Sometimes no one's perfect. It's just that's how it. I mean, they were lucky to get that look at all.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and especially it being wide open. Like, I think he was surprised how open he was.
Right. But sometimes that happens, and you're like, "Oh wow, I'm wide open," and just brick it.
The thing is Danny Green is such a great shooter. You know, I expected that to drop, but he just didn't convert. You know, I don't want to say he choked because it wasn't like a potential game winner, or it wasn't in game 7. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
I feel like, I don't know, he probably should have made that shot, but I wouldn't say he choked.
Yeah, I have a problem with trying to label that as a choke. It just doesn't seem right. I think it was just
if they were down 0-1 and that was the difference between tying the series and going up 2-0, or I'm sorry, or going down 2-0, then I would say he choked. But I mean, the series is tied and they're going on the road. I think they're capable of winning one game in Philly at least.
Yeah, most definitely.
I feel like. What's your prediction for this series?
I'm gonna say still Raptors in 5 or 6.
Man, I'm gonna say Raptors in 6 or 7. I just think they're a more well-rounded, deeper team like much deeper team than Philly is, and I think Philly's bench is going to be their downfall. And also questions with Embiid's health. We didn't even mention that yet. So let's
didn't even talk about Embiid's struggles with health. What?
Yeah.
what was it?
It was.
I had the runs.
It was diarrhea. Is literally what he had.
Bro, the thing is, he was just so like straight up about it. I was like, I respect that, because just functioning day to day with that sucks. I can't imagine being an athlete and having to deal with that during playoffs.
Yeah, like I would be afraid that I'd poop myself if I'm going out. You know what I'm saying?
Can you imagine that? Like, Embiid posts the one up and like everyone backs off him. He's like, "What did I do?"
Oh man, and I was like, oh, man, if I were sick at all, I'd be afraid that I was going to throw up on the court or anything.
Right.
That would be so embarrassing on national TV
in front of millions of viewers.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm still a little concerned about Embiid's health. He hasn't really looked the same ever since the knee problems started.
Right. It's always been something with him this playoff run.
Yeah, I mean, every year he just seems to have some kind of lingering injury or problem. Last year it was the face collision with Markelle Fultz and in the playoffs, and now this year it's the knee, and I don't know. I just hope that he can play through it and be the Joel Embiid, because Philly's going to need for him to be that if they want a chance to. I wouldn't say a chance to win the series, but if they want to win this series, he's going to need to be Joel Embiid.
Yeah, he's going to need to step it up, because Ben Simmons is not going to carry this team.
And Tobias Harris isn't built to be the number one scoring option, at least not on the Sixers system. And neither is Jimmy Butler, I don't think. I mean, Jimmy could do it, but you got to play through Embiid. And Tobias Harris, how did he play in this series so far?
I have yet to look. I don't know. Sometimes it just feels like he's invisible, man.
I mean, he had double-digit points. He had 14 in game one, and I'm pretty sure he didn't even have. I just looked. He had 9 points in game two. So Tobias Harris needs to step up a little more, I think. And even in that first round series, at times he didn't look like he was made for the moment.
Yeah. There's definitely a part of me that thinks that he's not that he's choking, but that he is. I don't know. Doesn't want that pressure, that weight on his shoulders. Maybe it's a byproduct of him being with the Clippers
right
for so long.
Yeah, to me he's kind of a mixture of things. He's like a borderline all-star. Some games he looks like a borderline all-star. Other time he looks like an elite role player, and then other times he looks like an all-star.
And other times he looks like Carmelo Anthony.
Right. Yes. That's a great way of putting it. So I need to see more elite role player, all-star, somewhere in between there, Tobias Harris more often. Because sometimes he's just he's too good of a shooter to be playing through stretches of the games the way he does sometimes.
All right, and the Sixers need that shooting.
Exactly, because they don't have shooting. They don't have that much shooting as it is. So what they have in Redick and Harris as shooters, they need to be those guys for them to win this series.
Most definitely.
And from what I've seen so far, I mean, Redick has had some good games throughout these playoffs, but it's not all the time like they need it to be.
Yeah, shooters are going to be hit and miss. That's literally how it works.
Yeah, that's going to be their priority this offseason, is signing Harris and Butler back and also getting more bench depth and shooting.
That's why it made me just go, huh? When they had to trade Shamet for,
Yeah, that was tough.
It was tough to see him go, but I get it. It's hard to pass up on a player like Tobias Harris.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, who would you rather have? The same team they had, or the one with Tobias Harris? I'd take the one with Harris.
Because they had somewhat of depth with,
Shamet.
they had Shamet. Bolden is kind of a cool, interesting player. He's kind of a shot blocker at times. He can be a good defender. He shows flashes of it. I'm not saying he's really even a good player yet. But there's something, I don't know. I like to see these young players and
there's
just
potential there.
When I see there's potential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe he'll be like an Al Horford one day, or a Derek Favors.
And just make sure it's not that Al Horford jump shot. God, that thing is ugly.
Right, but he makes them.
I mean, he's wet with it, but it's still ugly.
Yeah, it's bad. His feet are like 2 feet apart, like 3 feet apart actually.
Right.
So what else have you seen in this series? What have, actually let's get more specific. What have you seen from Ben Simmons?
And just more woes of him not being able to space the floor.
Yeah, that's really costing them.
Kawhi straight bullying him.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he only had 3 assists in game 1, and he shot well. He shot 7 for 8, but I think he needs to look to be a little more aggressive as a scorer.
Right, like he needs to develop a post game. If he's not going to shoot, and he's mostly passing,
mm-hmm.
like he needs to, like transition dunks aren't going to be the only thing. Like it's great when he can find those lanes and be able to get to the basket like that, but
mm-hmm.
he needs, a second, third, fourth option when he runs out of space or he doesn't have that first option. Just getting right to the rim or.
Mm-hmm.
Passing out the corner.
Well, yeah, he's not the number 1 option, obviously. But still, he only had 6 points in 44 minutes in Game 2. I mean, they won the game, but I think they could have won more convincingly. And nobody really had a good game except for Jimmy Butler that game, and Toronto struggled a lot. I don't know. It's just kind of weird. The Game 2 was kind of weird, and I just think Ben. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, but I think Game 3 might settle the dust, if that makes any sense. Kind of because I feel like Toronto can just crush people at home, especially with a crowd like Philly.
Mm-hmm.
They're harsh on their own players. They start sucking. They're like, boo.
Yeah, for real. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see. What happens the rest of the way in this series. I think Game 3 is tomorrow. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So, man.
You got anything else for this series?
Man, I don't. Other than just watching Kawhi ball out and hoping that Embiid, steps it up, he can get past his, injuries and ailments.
Yeah, I hope so, man, because they're gonna need him to win the series.
Yeah, they definitely need him to win this series, or else it's Raptors 6.
Probably. Yeah, who knows? We'll see what happens when this in Game 3 and 4 when it shifts to Philly. I feel like it's going to still be tied 2-2 after Game 4. But
yeah, that's definitely possible.
Yeah. All right, but yeah, guys, hopefully you enjoyed. Leave a like if you did. Subscribe for more. Comment, let us know what you think. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.
Later.